In 2004, a couple in Phoenix, Arizona, let's call them Carol and Jim, bought a house for $310,000. Everyone told them it was a great decision. Their parents told them, their realtor told them, their mortgage broker told them. The house was in a good school district, the neighborhood was appreciating, and renting was just throwing money away. By 2006, the house was worth $410,000 on paper. Carol and Jim felt rich. By 2009, it was worth $181,000. They owed $285,000. They had not moved, they had not renovated, the house had not changed. Their net worth had just been surgically removed by a math problem they were never shown. Here's the thing. Carol and Jim weren't stupid. They weren't reckless. They did exactly what the culture, the financial industry, and every piece of conventional wisdom told them was the responsible, adult, wealth-building decision, and it destroyed them. The reason it destroyed them isn't that they bought at the wrong time, it's that they never actually understood what they were buying. A house is not what most people think it is, and the gap between what people think a house is and what a house actually is, financially speaking, is costing ordinary Americans hundreds of thousands of dollars in destroyed opportunity every decade. I'm Susan, and I spend way too much time thinking about why the things we're told are smart financial moves are often the ones that set us back the furthest. By the end of this video, you're going to understand the real return on homeownership when you account for every cost that your mortgage broker didn't mention. I'm going to show you the actual math on renting versus buying, not the cartoon version, the real one. We'll dig into why the housing market is structurally tilted against first-time buyers right now in ways that are genuinely different from any prior generation. And I'll give you a specific framework called the true cost test that will tell you with actual numbers whether buying a home in your market makes financial sense or whether you're about to make the most expensive emotional decision of your life. If you're someone who has been told your whole life that renting is throwing money away and you're not sure whether to believe it anymore, subscribe and like this video. That feeling is the right instinct. Let's follow it. Think of a house like a savings account that fights back. A normal savings account takes your money, holds it, and gives it back with a little extra. A house takes your money, holds it, and while it's holding it, charges you property taxes, maintenance costs, insurance, HOA fees, and interest payments. And then, maybe, when you're done, it gives some of it back. The question is never whether the house appreciated. The question is whether it appreciated more than everything it cost you to own it. And almost nobody runs that number before they sign. Most people have heard a version of the rent versus buy debate that goes something like this. Renting builds zero equity, buying builds equity, therefore buying is better. This is like eating a cheeseburger is better than eating a salad because the cheeseburger has more calories, and calories are energy. Technically true, missing everything important. Let's go back to 1987, not because that's when housing started, but because 1987 is when Yale economist Robert Shiller began systematically tracking real home price appreciation across the United States over time, adjusted for inflation. What he found became one of the most cited and most ignored statistics in personal finance. From 1915 to 2015, 100 years of American real estate, the inflation-adjusted return on residential real estate was approximately 0.6% per year. Not 6%, 0.6. After inflation, after a century, a house returned less than a government savings bond. Meanwhile, the inflation-adjusted return on the U.S. stock market over the same period was closer to 7% annually. That's not a rounding error. That is a completely different universe of outcomes. And yet, we have built an entire cultural mythology around homeownership as the cornerstone of personal wealth. Shiller won the Nobel Prize in Economics partly for this work. The data has been available for decades. Your mortgage broker has never mentioned it once. Now, and this is important, Shiller's number is the average national long-term figure. Real estate is local, and some markets have dramatically outperformed that average. Manhattan, San Francisco, and coastal cities in general have produced significantly higher real returns than the national average. So this isn't a universal argument against buying. It's an argument against buying blindly, against treating a house as automatically a great investment because everyone around you says so. The question isn't whether houses can appreciate. They can. The question is whether your specific house, in your specific market, over your specific time horizon, will appreciate enough to outperform what you'd have built if you'd rented and invested the difference. Here's where the math gets punishing, and here's the part nobody walks you through before you sign. Let's say you're 31 years old. You're buying a $450,000 house with a 10% down payment, $45,000. Your mortgage is $405,000 at a 7% interest rate, which, as of 2025, is a realistic number. Your monthly principal and interest payment is approximately $2,695, but that is not what owning this house costs you. Property taxes in most U.S. markets will run you between 1 and 2.5% of the home's value annually. Call it 1.3%. That's $5,850 a year, or $487 a month. Homeowners insurance, around $1,800 a year, $150 a month. PMI, because you put down less than 20%, roughly $230 a month until you hit 20% equity, which at this rate will take approximately 8 years. Maintenance, and this is the number people consistently underestimate, financial planners used a 1% rule, meaning you should budget 1% of your home's value per year for upkeep. On a $450,000 home, that's $4,500 a year, $375 a month. That's a conservative estimate. Roofs, HVAC systems, appliances, plumbing, the house will find a way to spend that money. Total monthly cost of owning this house is $2,695 plus $487 plus $150 plus $230 plus $375. That's $3,937, not $2,695. Now let's look at what's actually happening inside that $3,937. In month 1 of a 30-year mortgage at 7%, your $2,695 payment breaks down like this. Approximately $2,363 goes to interest. $332 goes to principal, meaning equity you actually own. Of your $3,937 total monthly outlay, $332 is building equity. The other $3,605, 92% of your housing cost, is gone, evaporated, into the bank's revenue, the county's tax base, and the insurance company's pocket. And yet somehow it's renting that's throwing money away. Here's the escalation most people miss, and this one tends to make people angry when they actually see it. In the first year of your mortgage, you pay $2,363 a month in interest. That's $28,356 in interest payments in year 1 alone. Your house would have to appreciate by $28,356 just to break even on the interest. On a $450,000 home, that requires 6.3% appreciation in the first year. The historical long-run average, nationally, is 3% to 4% nominal, before inflation, before costs. So in the average year, in the average market, you are not building wealth in year 1 of homeownership. You are losing ground, slowly, quietly, while feeling like you're doing the responsible thing. Now, over time, the amortization schedule shifts. By year 20, more of your payment goes to principal than interest. By year 28, the math actually starts working meaningfully in your favor. This is why buy and hold forever works for homeownership. The long game is real. The problem is, most Americans move every 7 to 9 years. They never reach the part of the schedule where the math cooperates. Here's who wins from this misunderstanding. The mortgage industry collects trillions in interest payments from people who believe those payments are building wealth. Real estate agents, whose commission is a percentage of sale price, have a structural incentive to encourage purchasing, to encourage upsizing, and to validate whatever price the market sets. Title companies, appraisers, mortgage brokers, every party in the transaction gets paid when you buy, regardless of whether buying was right for you. This is not a conspiracy. Nobody is lying. They are just operating within a system of incentives that points universally toward one answer: buy. And the cultural mythology that renting is financial failure is the most valuable piece of marketing the real estate industry has ever produced, because it means millions of people walk into that transaction emotionally committed to one outcome before they've run a single number. Picture this. You're sitting at a closing table. There are approximately 9 people in the room: your agent, the seller's agent, the title officer, a notary, a mortgage company representative, maybe a real estate attorney. You are surrounded by professionals whose combined compensation from this transaction totals between $35,000 and $50,000, all paid at closing, all paid regardless of what happens to you next. One of them slides a stack of paper in front of you that is literally 400 pages long. Everyone is smiling. There's a bowl of wrapped candy on the table. Someone made coffee. You sign. You sign again. You sign 47 more times. And somewhere in those 400 pages is the amortization schedule that shows you'll pay $705,000 in total principal and interest on a $405,000 loan, meaning the bank will collect $300,000 in profit from you over 30 years on money they created electronically when you signed. Nobody in that room brings this up. There is a bowl of candy. You sign. Let me show you 2 people. Meet Diane and Kevin. Both are 30, both have $50,000 saved, both earn $90,000 a year and live in the same metro area where renting a decent 2-bedroom runs $2,200 a month. Kevin buys a $420,000 house, $42,000 down, keeps $8,000 as an emergency fund. His total monthly housing cost, fully loaded, lands at about $3,650. Diane rents the $2,200 apartment, invests her $45,000 in a total market index fund, and puts the $1,450 monthly difference between Kevin's housing cost and her rent into the same fund every month. We're going to run 10 years, because that's close to the average American's time horizon in a home. After 10 years, Kevin's house, assuming 3.5% annual appreciation, is worth approximately $591,000. He owes about $358,000. His equity is $233,000. He's also spent roughly $133,000 in interest, $52,000 in property taxes, $18,000 in insurance, and $42,000 in maintenance over the decade. He has built $233,000 in equity on a total housing expenditure of about $438,000. His effective return on money spent is just under 53 cents on the dollar. Diane, over the same 10 years, has invested her initial $45,000 plus $1,450 a month into a market returning the historical average of 9% annually. Her portfolio after 10 years is approximately $345,000. She has not built equity in a house. She has built a portfolio. She can move cities tomorrow. She can take a year off work. Her assets are liquid. Kevin cannot do any of those things with a 6-month transaction process and a check written to 2 real estate agents. Diane didn't win because renting is always better. She won because she ran the math before making the decision. Kevin never did. The emotional punchline isn't the number. It's that Kevin, for 10 years, has been telling people at dinner parties that he's building equity. And he believed it. And every Thanksgiving, someone asked him if he was still renting, and he felt a flash of shame. The cultural shame of renting is so powerful that it can override a spreadsheet. That's not a financial problem. That's a psychology problem. And the people who profit from the transaction are very aware of which levers to pull. Here's your framework. I call it the true cost test, and it has 4 questions you must answer with real numbers before you sign anything. Question 1. What is your total monthly cost of ownership, including mortgage, principal and interest, property taxes, insurance, PMI if applicable, HOA fees, and a realistic maintenance reserve? If this number is more than 28% of your gross monthly income, you are likely over-leveraged by standard financial planning definitions, and your margin for anything going wrong is almost zero. Question 2. What is your realistic time horizon in this house? If the answer is fewer than 7 years, the transaction costs of buying and selling alone, agent commissions typically running 5 to 6% of sale price, will eat most or all of your appreciation. On a $450,000 house you hold for 5 years and sell for $500,000, a 5.5% commission is $27,500, almost all of your gain before taxes. Short time horizons and homeownership are a brutal combination. Question 3. What would happen to your financial picture if you rented equivalent housing and invested the difference between your true ownership cost and your rent payment? Run this number. Actually run it. Most people who do this for the first time are genuinely shocked by what they find. Question 4, and this one is the most important. Why do you want to buy this house? If the answer is because it's the responsible thing to do, or because renting feels like failure, or because everyone else is buying, that is not a financial reason. That is a social pressure reason, and social pressure is not a valid input for a $500,000, 30-year financial commitment. There are real, valid reasons to buy a home: stability for children in school districts, control over your living environment, inflation hedging on a fixed payment, the forced savings mechanism of equity, community roots. These are legitimate, but they are life reasons, not necessarily wealth reasons. And the moment you treat them as the same thing, you make yourself vulnerable to a transaction that benefits everyone in the room except you. Here are your 3 takeaways. 1. The true cost of homeownership is typically 40 to 60% higher than your mortgage payment alone, and most people have never calculated the real number. Do it tonight. Add property tax, insurance, PMI, and a 1% annual maintenance reserve. What you find will change how you think about the decision. 2. Time horizon is the single most important variable in the rent versus buy math. If you're buying for fewer than 7 years, you are almost certainly better off renting and investing the difference. The transaction costs alone guarantee it. 3. The cultural shame of renting is manufactured. It was not this way, and it is not this way in most other developed countries, where renting for life is normal, dignified, and financially rational. Do not let a social narrative written by industries that profit from your purchase drive a decision with 30-year consequences. The system is rigged, but it's rigged in a predictable way. Once you understand that every professional in the home buying process gets paid when you buy, and gets paid more when you buy bigger, and that the cultural messaging around homeownership is one of the most effective pieces of mass marketing ever deployed, you stop making the decision emotionally and start making it mathematically. Some people will run the numbers and decide to buy. Some will decide to rent. Both can be right, but neither should decide without the numbers. Lazy investing built more fortune than crypto memes. The invisible millionaires aren't all homeowners. Some of them are renters who've been quietly compounding in index funds for 20 years while their neighbors argued about curb appeal. If you want to see how I think about the rent versus buy decision for different income levels and markets, there's a video on my channel walking through the full model. No affiliate links, just math. And drop a comment. I want to know what market you're in and whether buying or renting feels like the right call right now. I read every single one.